Yo, what up? It's me, Yuvin, a top-level Tableturf player, and in this video I will continue my ranking of every Tableturf card. And be sure to check out the previous video if you haven't seen that yet, where I rank sizes 1 to 7. Alright, let's get started with Splattershot. Splattershot is really good because you can put it against a wall like this and get a lot of easy specials with cards like Heavy Edit Splatling and Ballpoint. It also is really good at just going around the starting space like this, so you get easy specials like that as well. Overall very versatile and good card, very much like Tri-Sloshers in a sense, and put both of them in really good. Next up is the Blasters, and I think I'm going to put them in good. They are easy to activate your special with because you can put them against a corner like this. However, they're pretty big for 8 size, just because of like the shape. They are 5 by 3, so they're pretty big even though they're only 8. So it's kinda hard to utilize all the space you got to work with here if you play a blaster. But they're still good cards just because they activate special really easily. And now we got Clash Blasters. They're also good, they're not amazing or anything. I think the best use for Clash Blasters is just in Dynamo decks or in general very blocky decks where you can pull off these kind of easy special activations with other cards in your deck. Because they can't be put against a corner like this. And now we got Rapid Blasters. They are one of the better cards. They are one of the better cards that you can just put against a corner like this, and it combos with so many other cards, it's very ridiculous. And they are 4 by 3, it's pretty easy to just fit them in anywhere in the mid game and even late game. They're just really easy to use, versatile and good cards. And on top of that they are 8 size, which makes them really good as special attacks. Let's move on to the 83 Nozzle Noses. They're good cards I think, but there's nothing really special about them. Just like the previous cards, they're also pretty good at just activating against a corner like this. Especially if you have like Power Clam or Mudmouth or something like that. But they're not as easy to activate as other cards. You kinda need like a Fizzy Bomb space here in order to work with these cards. And now we got the Squiffers. They're also good cards I think. They are one of the better cards to use in a 2 by X space like this. And they can easily activate with a Wiper or something like that. And now we get to the Splat Chargers. These cards are insane. The Chargers are so good at just taking space and punishing openings that your opponent leaves. For example, imagine if you did this kind of opening. Your opponent could just like go down here with a Charger, another Charger fits here, like it's just so good at taking space. Even in the early game you can just use Chargers to put so much pressure on your opponent because they're 7 long and they just fit anywhere. They're so thin, like you can just put them against the wall like this and it will always work. So the Chargers just fundamentally change the way you play Tableturf because you have to account for them. They make it so you have to really defend on all sides, you can't leave a single opening. Because your opponent could just put the Charger right through otherwise. And even then, Chargers are so good at just being able to be played in the mid game and the late game because they're so thin. They are really good at special attacks. Not only because they're 8 size and only activate with 3 special cost. The Chargers are so long, so you can just threaten a lot of space by just having 3 special points that you can utilize anytime with the Charger to invade your opponent's base. And not to mention, they have some really cool combo potential. Stuff like Dakaroka and Splash Mob. So they're one of the most important cards in the game and almost every deck should consider having one. And aggressive decks should consider having both of them. Next up we have the Splat Dualies. They're good cards, they can be tough to work with sometimes, but if you build a deck around them, they're pretty good. They combo really well with stuff like C plus F and Splattershot. Next up are the Tetra Dualies, and honestly I think they're pretty underrated. They are amazing at comboing with other huge cards, so they're really good in that aspect. Some examples include Callie and Marie, Big Man 1, and Octavio. And in general, it's pretty easy to activate their special because you can put them against a corner and then put something like an Ink Mine or a Tentatek or a Sprinkler and just activate their special. And now we have the Undercover Brellas. They are sadly not that good. It's really hard to activate their special and they take up a lot of space. Their best use cases is with Checkerboard, with stuff like Point Sensor and Spike and Ouroboros. I think they're pretty good at just clashing with bigger cards because they take up a lot of space but they're only 8 size. But I mean, that's not very reliable. And the next card is also one of the better cards, Lil Judd. Lil Judd is so insanely good at activating its special. It's a 3x3, so it's so easy to just like... It's a 3x3, so it's so easy to just have space for it anywhere in the map. Even a lot of the times you can even find spots in the late game where you can just put a Lil Judd in the corner or something and activate the special and get 8 more points. Lil Judd works even better with cards like Octodisco and Dynamo and in general light decks. And next up is Tony Kensa. I really wish Tony Kensa was a good card. The special placement really trolls it. Look at these cards that should combo with it, but it doesn't even activate its own special. So it's really not that good. And in most situations where you want Tony Kensa, you could play C plus F instead. The one cool thing about it though is that it's pretty good with Ultra Stab. Honestly, even though no one uses it, it is an 8 size, so it's pretty good at special attacking. I think it has potential, I'll put it in niche. Next in line is Octotrooper. It's a decent card. If you have base combos for it, it can work. It's 8 size too, which makes it good as a special attack. But it's just kinda hard to activate the special point because of this shape. And please don't play this card in Sticky Ticket. There's literally not a single way to play this card in mid. Next up is Squeegee. It's a pretty underrated card. It has some really cool combos that I think people aren't really paying attention to. The most obvious combo is with Ouroboros, but in double Gemini, it's an insanely good combo with Shiver 2. Now we're moving on to the 9 sizes. I think the Sploosho-matics are good cards. The Splooshes are like the embodiment of socket decks, and they can really work well if you build decks around them. They are a bit chunky. I really wish you could have a card shaped like this, where you could put them here, but you have to put them outside here. And next up is the Splattershot Pros. I really don't understand these cards, because why would you ever use Splattershot Pro when Splatterscope exists? Like, being 6 long is so detrimental to it. For example, Splat Duelies. Most of the combos it has, you could just do it better with a Splatterscope. I'm gonna put them in very niche. Next up is Range Blaster. It's a good card. You mainly see it with the 96 Gal combo, but it also just works against the corner like almost every other blaster. It also has a very weird amount of synergy with Ouroboros. The Rapid Blaster Pros, they're good cards as well. If you build a deck around them, they should work fine. Next up are the Spat Rollers. Again, I think they're just good cards. If you put yourself in situations where they can be used, they're good. I think the main use case is with Octavio, because you can put it here pretty easily. Now we got the Octobrushes. I think they're also good cards. The Octobrushes are just really good at going through diagonal lines, punishing opponents that leave these kind of openings. And I think they work better than Inkbrush in that regard just because they're longer. They are also really good in double Gemini, and I really like this combo with Pearl. Next up are the Nautilus cards. I'll put them in decent. Mainly good for line decks and for this map. But in general there are probably better cards to play instead, like maybe Mini or something. Next we have the Gluga Dualies. They're also good for socket decks, but they are kinda clunky because they're 4x4. Maybe it's just recency bias, but I think the Gluga Duelist deco might be a bit better because I just find more combos with it. But I'm not willing to put it in another tier by itself. And next we have Reflux and Reflux Deco. Now these are the main cards that you want to play with Tri-Stringer, unless you have a Perlina deck or something. But always, if you're gonna play Reflux, choose the vanilla Reflux, because it's just straight up better in every situation. Only need these two spaces filled to activate the vanilla Reflux. Meanwhile, the Reflux Deco needs all these. It's not to say the Reflux Deco is useless, because if you want two of them, then yeah, you can have two of them. But most of the time you only need one, so I'm gonna put Reflux in good and Reflux Deco in niche. Next up we have Squid Beacon. I'm probably gonna put it in niche. You really need to build a deck around it for it to work. There are some good combos with stuff like Oversized Octopod. You could do something with Ouroboros, and here with Shiver 2. But it's kinda too much of a hassle for only 9 points usually. So most of the time you'd be better off playing something else. Next is Rockenberg. Pretty similar to Squid Beacon with its combos, but I think it's a little bit better. It's a lot with Kali and the specific combo in River Drift. It also works really good with the Oversized Octopod. And the specific thing about this combo is that it's like a full rectangle, so it's really compact and good to work with. And it's also really good with Shiver 2, because you can put Shiver 2 like this and have Rockenberg here. So honestly, I think I might even put the good up here. It's pretty underrated. Our next card is Forge, and honestly that's also a top tier card. It's insane how easy it is to put Forge in combos where it just belongs. It fits really nicely in a lot of spaces. And especially if you have the heavy Splatlings. Forge and heavy Splatlings are super good. Next up we have Firefin. In my opinion, it's best to use Firefin when you have Kohosuna in your deck, but you don't want to be screwed every time you don't draw Kohosuna in time. So if you for example have Kohosuna here, but you don't draw it, you could have a backup plan with Firefin, maybe something else here. That's mainly the only use it has. I'm gonna put it in niche. Next we have Barasushi. I think it's kinda like a Tri-Stringer, but worse. You can use it with Empire like this, but that's mainly the only thing it has going for it. Otherwise you mainly want to just use Tri-Stringers instead. I'll put it in niche. Next up is Embers. Embers is mainly used in checkerboard decks and to counter checkerboard decks. It also has some wacky combos with Undercover Brella. Other than that, it's really not good, so I'll put it in niche. To Zeppelin seems like it has a good shape, but in practice it's not that good actually. Being a 9 size is really bad for it too, just so it has a worse special cost. And I don't really see it used that much, and I don't use it myself much. But the shape is not awful, I put it in niche. Next we have Amped Octostamp. Now this seems like a great card for checkerboard, but honestly you're better off just using other cards like Merch and stuff. There are better cards for checkerboard. And this 9 size is just not good enough. It's really rotated at all, so it's really not versatile at all. I'll put it in bare niche. Next up is Kohawk. I see it mainly used in some type of combo decks, and it's one of the better cards in Double Gemini, so it deserves to go in good in my opinion. Next we have Fish Stick. It's a very funny card, but not that useful. There is some funny stuff you can do with it, but only being 6 long is really bad for it. Next we have Sapfish. It's a pretty niche card. Works best with Dapple type decks, but it's not really one of the better cards for even that archetype. I think that one of the main things it has is that it's really good in mid in this map, Sticker Ticket. The Big Swig Rollers are pretty good cards. They fit pretty well in a lot of scenarios, and activate special super easily. I think the main drawback is that they're 9 size. Next up we have the Snipe Writers. They seem pretty similar to Charger, but the main drawbacks is that they're 9 size, so they don't work as well as special attacks. They're also not as thin, so you can't really use them in the edges like this. 5H does have a pretty good combo with 5-2 though. And I honestly think that's good enough for 5H for niche and 5B for very niche. Next we have the S-Blasts. They're also very versatile and can easily activate special just like most other blasters. And I think their shapes in particular is very easy to work with. Put them in good. And that was it for this video. I'll see you all next time, where we go from 10 to 12.